Hello YouTube and welcome to my next video. Today we are taking a look onto the Witchcrafter archetype. First of all, quick explanation about the Witchcrafter's gimmick. Every low level Witchcrafter monster share the same effect, where they can tribute themselves and discard one spell to special summon one Witchcrafter monster from the deck. The other Witchcrafter monster which are high level use the discard one spell term as well, but differently. Their spells share one simple effect as well, which says during your end phase, if you control a Witchcrafter monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. Every effect on their spells are hard once per turn, and you can only use one effect every round. So if you use the spell normally, you can't recover those spells in the same end phase. But by discarding them for the effect cost, you can get them back. With that said, we are going straight into the deck profile and starting off with one copy of Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. This card is basically the archetype's hand trap. You can special summon this card from your hand when a spellcaster monster is targeted for an attack or card effect. You can then target one card from your enemy or one Witchcrafter card from your graveyard and bounce it back to the hand. Sadly, this effect doesn't negate the attack effect which was targeting your card. In the next standby phase of your enemy, this card goes back into your hand. That's why I play it at once, since it always recycles itself anyways. Next we have two copies of Witchcrafter Madame Ver. This card is probably the card you want to go into when you are going first, since its effect allows you to negate every effect of the monsters your opponent controls by simply discarding one spell. Also, you can reveal any amount of different spell cards in your hand to grant one of your spellcaster monsters 1000 attack and defense for every spell reveal until the end of this turn, which makes it pretty hard to beat over, since it's a damage step effect as well. Then we have another possible target for going first, two copies of Witchcrafter Heine. She allows you to quick effect destroy one monster by discarding one spell. It also prevents your enemy from targeting spellcaster monsters you control with card effects, except herself. She ain't that good in interrupting the enemy like Madame Ver is, but she's definitely almost as annoying. She also can achieve the same thing, but maybe even better by getting rid of one of your enemy's monsters during his turn. And she's also best girl. Then we have two copies of Witchcrafter Adel. This card is the one you want to use on your turn, since her effect is that you can special summon one Witchcrafter monster from your hand by discarding one spell. So you immediately can get another Witchcrafter out to have a stronger board. You also can use this effect in the enemy turn since it's a quick effect, but the second effect, which isn't a quick effect, would be her tributing herself to special summon any Witchcrafter monster from your graveyard. And since it's not a quick effect, that's probably the main reason why you want to use this card on your turn to get one card out of your hand and one card out of your grave. Then we have one of the most important monster, 3 copies of Witchcraft Schmitta. She's the level 4 of this archetype with the effect of discarding one spell to special summon another Witchcrafter from the deck, like mentioned in the beginning. But the most important effect is her graveyard effect, where you can banish this card to send one Witchcrafter spell trap from your deck to the graveyard, which basically means you get to add that certain card in the end phase to your hand if you control a Witchcrafter monster, of course. So it's basically a search for a spell, but kinda slow in these terms, but still a pretty strong effect. Next we have 3 copies of Witchcrafter Pitoire. I don't know how to pronounce her. Anyways, she also shares the discard effect. Her graveyard effect allows you to draw one card and then send one Witchcrafter card from your hand to the graveyard by banishing her. But if you don't have any Witchcrafter card to discard afterwards, you then banish your entire hand. So don't risk that if you don't have any Witchcrafter cards in your hand. So you get to draw for resources and discard, at most cases, a spell, which gets recycled in the end phase anyways. So you basically go +1 using this effect. On to the next, which would be 2 copies of Witchcrafter Pottery. Like the others, she also has the discard effect. Her graveyard effect would be where you can add one Witchcrafter card from your graveyard by banishing her. But this effect is only possible if you have no cards in hand. If it turns out you can't recycle your spells because somehow you didn't end up with a Witchcrafter on the field, this card is here to get at least one card back, which could lead into a huge comeback. So its only use is probably its comeback effect, but that's the reason why I only play her 2 times over 3 times, but 1 copy could be fine as well. And as the last main deck monster, we have 3 copies of Witchcrafter Jenny. We are going straight to the graveyard effect, which says you can banish her and one Witchcrafter spell from your graveyard to activate that spell's effect as her own. So if you banish, For example, Witchcraft Creation, which lets you add one monster. You can banish Tenyi and Witchcraft Creation to activate the effect of creation from your graveyard. So you get to activate a spell card by using resources from the graveyard, which is also always a good thing, and you can always do that without spending a lot of resources if you have this card and any other spell in your graveyard. Then we are heading over to the spell cards, where we play plenty of, because that's what the deck is all about. But in this case you need to appreciate the artwork of every single spell from them, because those artworks are so freaking cute and sick. Starting off with 2 copies of Witchcrafter Collaboration. Witchcrafter isn't a deck which spams out a lot of monsters, so Collaboration lets you target one Witchcrafter monster which can attack twice this turn, without the common restriction that only this one card you targeted can attack. So if you have 2 monsters out, like Heine and Schmitta, you use this one on Heine. Heine is able to attack twice and Schmitta can attack normally as well. Next is probably the most important one. It's 3 copies of Witchcraft Creation, which was mentioned earlier by the effect of Jenny. This card lets you add one Witchcraft monster from your deck, so it's the archetype search card. The effect is quite simple but still quite strong, since it allows you to search a monster almost every second turn, since you'll get to recycle it the next end phase anyways. Mostly you search out the low level monsters, because those allow you to float into any other Witchcraft monster. But in some cases it's also a possibility to search out your Aruru to have an answer in your hand for certain cards. Then we have 3 copies of Witchcrafter Holiday. The artwork on that one is especially amazing. You see Adel getting angry over Madame Ware taking a nap. So this card allows you to get back one Witchcrafter monster from your graveyard by special summoning it onto your field. So you basically call them back from their holiday. Yeah, I'm going to leave now. And that's probably the reason why it's called like that, so a simply monster reborn for this archetype, which is always good to have. The next spell is kinda game state orientated. It's 1 copy of Witchcrafter Draping. This card allows you to bounce spell trap cards your opponent controls up to the number of Witchcrafter monsters you control. Because Witchcraft is a control deck and doesn't have a lot of possibilities to spam the board, it's most likely this card ever bounces 1 to 2 cards. If you really need it for further plays because your opponent is setting up a lot of back row, you can always mill it with Schmitta's effect, so you can add it to your hand in the end phase. Then we have 1 copy of Witchcrafter Unveiling, which could also be played at 2 or maybe 3 depending on how important it is for you to set up your board with monsters. This card basically has the same effect like Adel does, but with some extras on it. You get to special summon 1 Witchcrafter monster from your hand, adding the effect that your opponent cannot respond to your activations of Spellcaster's effects until the end of the turn, which is a pretty strong effect on a quick spell card. Because if you use this card on the enemy's turn, your enemy isn't able to respond to your Witchcrafter quick effect in his turn. So you can like use Heine or Madame Ware and he can respond anytime with hand traps or anything. Then we have the Magician's cards, which is one of the reasons why the deck is getting even more control-like. We have 1 copy of Magician's right hand and 1 copy of Magician's left hand. So the right hand allows you to negate the first spell activation from your opponent, and the left hand the first trap activation, if you control a face-up spellcaster monster. So you set up a board where the enemy has to use quite a lot to play around those setups, adding the fact you may control Heine or even Madame Ware as well, which interrupt the enemy's plays even more. Coming with the 2 Magician's cards, we also play 2 copies of Magician's Restage, which can be used in 2 different ways. This card says once per turn you can special summon 1 level 3 or lower spellcaster monster from your graveyard, but you can only use this effect once when this card is on your field. That card is like Call of the Haunted. You get to reborn something from your graveyard, but if you tribute, synchro or link and so on, it will stay forever with no use at all. But the second effect is way better in Witchcrafter deck, which says if this card gets sent to the graveyard, you get to add 1 Magician's card from your deck except itself. So if you use the effect of a Witchcrafter monster to discard 1 spell, you get to search out another spell from your deck which prevents your opponent from a specific type of card with the Magician's right hand or Magician's left hand, or those cards can be used for another discard for a Witchcrafter monster. The next card for the use of controlling the board would be 3 copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters, which says that your enemy can't use spell cards at all if he does control a spellcaster type monster. But the same applies to you if you don't control a spellcaster monster yourself, but you usually do since you play Witchcrafters and every monster is a spellcaster monster in the deck. And even if you don't control a spellcaster monster, that's why Witchcrafter Creation is so important. You get to search out another spellcaster monster so you don't get restricted by your own card. Then we have the last 2 spell cards, which we both play 2 copies of, which would be the permanent spell Witchcrafter's By Street and Witchcrafter Scrolls. Both share the same effect. If a Witchcraft monster you control would discard to activate an effect, you can send this card from your field to the graveyard instead. So these cards function like all the other spells. You can basically discard them from the field and recycle them the next turn. But they have the permanent effects as well, where Scroll says once per turn when your spellcaster monster destroys a monster by battle, you get to draw 1 card, which is always good. While By Street prevents your Witchcraft monsters from getting destroyed by battle or card effects once per turn, which is pretty good as well. Then we head over to the traps, where we only play 1, and it's also the last card in the main deck. 1 copy of Witchcrafter Patronus. This card is basically the recycle engine for your monsters, since the spells recycle themselves anyways. Its effect allows you to target 1 of your spellcasters which is in your graveyard or banished and returns it into the deck. You then get to search out 1 Witchcrafter spell from your deck in addition to that effect. Since it's a permanent trap, you get this effect every turn. But it also has an effect in graveyard when it was destroyed from your opponent. You can banish this card to target any number of banished Witchcrafter spells and add them to your hand. With the effect of Jenny, you banish your spells from the graveyard, so this is a possible recover for those spells. Heading over to the extra deck, where I really struggled to find something fitting, since Witchcrafter actually like to have their own cards on the board and they don't have any extra deck monsters themselves. So most of these cards are for the purpose of finishing the game or for an even better setup. Starting with the Charmers, 1 of each attribute. Luna can be played with Aruru, Madame Ware and Abel. Wind can be played with Jenny. Ulster can be played with Pottery. Heater with Schmitta, and area with Pittore, I don't know, I still don't know how to pronounce her. So you always have the possibility to steal 1 of your opponent's cards, since you have all attributes available except the dark one, since the charmer for that attribute isn't released yet. But if it ever gets released, you also have a possible target for that card, since you have Heine in your deck, which is a dark spellcaster monster. Next we play 1 copy of Akashic Magician, which needs 2 monsters with the same type as link material, and all of your monsters are spellcasters, so it's pretty easy to bring out. Its effect allows you to bounce every card she points to when it's summoned, so it's a non-target removal for unlucky cards positioned in this column. Good way to get rid of some really good cards. Then we have 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix and 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn. Both are very good cards to get rid of something from your opponent, and the discard cost isn't really a problem, since you can recover those cards anyways if they were spell cards. Another link I really like to go into are 2 copies of Puzzlemino, the drop and deleter. He allows you to once per turn target 2 cards with the same level and destroy those, 1 from your side and 1 from the enemy. But he also has the effect when a monster is special summoned in a zone this card points to, you can adjust its level from 1 to 8. So it's a way to go into powerful Xyz to end the game. Heading over to the Xyz, I play 1 copy of Levier the Sea Dragon. To get your banished Witchcrafter monsters back, he's hard to bring out but definitely worth once you do. For the powerful Xyz, I play 4 Galaxy Xe monsters, which would be number 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, number 62 Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. Then we have Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon. Sadly the card didn't arrive yet, I ordered it but it wasn't here until today. So here we go with a proxy. And at last we have Galaxy Eyes Cypher Blade Dragon. Those cards are huge beatsticks you can end the game with, and it's easy to special summon them with the help of Puzzlemino, and that's why they have a slot in my extra deck. So that was my deck profile of my Witchcrafter deck. I really hope you enjoyed it and be hyped about some other deck profiles in the future. Since I'm using my IRL decks for this format, there is currently a limit of how much and which ones I can actually do. So let me know in the comments below what you want to see next. Next you are going to see some gameplay of the deck, and at last a full deck list again showing in Edu Pro. See you in the next YouTube video.